Is it water with the sheep in the box?
Hello everyone, Sheep in the Box here. You may not have seen my face before. I did appear in a few old videos, but this is what I look like. I just wanted to make a quick disclaimer before this video. So if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen it before. Essentially, I've just taken bits from my old response to a Rose of Dawn video about degeneracy and pride, and rather than just basically remaking the same video again, I thought I'd use the same footage I did before, but repost it, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a lot of interesting discourse regarding whether or not kink people, or more sort of overt or different representations of sexuality at pride events, and whether or not they should be kid-friendly or anything like that. I've had a few arguments on Twitter with people about this, and I've had a few people who've said that it might actually be helpful to have the arguments in their own video rather than within a response video to some internet dipshit who, let's be honest, basically no one's ever heard of in the real world. So here we are, I guess.
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way.
There are two perspectives when it comes to pride, specifically the purpose of pride, and both are understandable, though ideologically diametrically opposed. The debate has been going on for ages, but basically the contention is this: should pride be a protest or an exercise in normalizing queer culture? Or to put it another way, should pride events exist to challenge the cis-heteronormative status quo, push boundaries, and show that often queer culture is wild and powerful and subversive under a society that heavily discourages it and pushes it to the sidelines, oppressing those within it in innumerable ways as has been done for decades? Or is pride ideal an event and a movement that should not challenge anyone but exist to normalize LGBTQ+ people in the mainstream, to show the cis-hets and wider society that yes, we are here, we are queer, but we're just like you. Look how normal we are, staying in our little boxes. Rose very much falls into the latter camp, believing that pride exists to assure cis-het people that the gays are harmless and fun and just like the majority, and as a result she believes that so-called degeneracy should be banned from pride, though she's not clear on who she believes should enforce this exclusion. Presumably the police, who spent much of the last century harassing, attacking, victimizing, abusing and murdering LGBTQ+ people. Yeah, cops totally belong at pride, sure. In words that echo the spirit of the post-Stonewall movement, Kill Hefner, the gay theorist, has long affirmed with conviction that gay people must begin a radical new process of self-discovery that starts with what is inside of us. But that does not happen without community and a shared culture, which might be where Leah Ann Purvis comes in. She has been poised to give the statewide community a voice, to reach out to society as a whole and build healthy relationships. Part of that process, however, is letting go of the need to assimilate. For Purvis, assimilation was never what we wanted. When you assimilate, it's on the terms of the dominant culture. We have too much to be proud of to assimilate. Rather, we need affirmation among ourselves, and it needs to be genuine. I don't want to emulate the heterosexual culture. I'm not sure you can erase or want to erase the central aspect of gay sexuality, which is what you need for true assimilation. There are many, many ways of being gay. Assimilationists might look at us as if we should look like everyone else, but we're not, and we're still learning what being gay means. On an activist level, Purvis is keen on finding more, well, community in our community. The work to grow and mature starts with us, she said, and erasing the divisions that have marked us for so long. Is it that improbable to have a community that is inclusive in itself, that we can say we have dykes on bikes and transvestites and bears? I think by demonstrating and accepting and not being homogenized is how we move forward. We lead by example, by being accepted amongst ourselves. We are not so rich in resources we can exclude members of our own community. We need each other. Pride has always been a protest. It has always existed to push boundaries. The first Pride was a riot which involved many disenfranchised LGBTQ+ people fucking throwing bricks at the police, and the Gay Liberation Front, the movement at the forefront of the push for LGBTQ+ rights for much of the 70s and 80s, was a militant organisation demanding change and rejecting much of the cis-heteronormativity inherent to our society. Don't get me wrong, LGBTQ+ people being accepted within society is of course a positive thing, and I know that people like Rose others would like to argue that the divide over this point means that people like me don't want that, but the fact of the matter is that we do very much want acceptance on our terms. Assimilationism means sacrificing part of ourselves and our identity to achieve the desired result of conditional societal acceptance, and that's not something I'm comfortable with, and often requires one to throw others under the bus in order to be seen as one of the good ones, rather than standing in solidarity with the community as a whole. We see this time and time again as people like Blair White and Calvin Garrett are accepted by the mainstream, and especially the right wing, because they're the ones willing to demonize and attack other trans people who are less likely to be accepted within an assimilationist view of society due to ingrained social norms, whilst themselves outwardly performing cis heteronormativity. Blair by being a needlessly cruel high school-esque bully, and Calvin by embracing and leaning into a horrifying amount of toxic masculinity, both acting with the express intent of shitting on trans people who don't fit the acceptable kind of transness they perceive society to be more accepting of. You know, like how gays in the 80s used to decry the more flamboyant elements of the community for giving the community a bad name and making it difficult to be accepted or some shit. Sound familiar?
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way.
The final point to be made here is a discussion around the purpose and ethics of publicly acknowledging and accepting kinks, particularly very niche ones like the leather dog people. Now, there's a lot of discussion to be had around this sort of thing, and having spoken to a few people I know in kink scenes in preparation for this video, the general consensus appears to be that doing shit like this is kind of a dick move, pretty inconsiderate, and just like not the done thing, including the general public in your sex games in such an overt way. It's going to make people a little uncomfortable, you know? With that said, I think it's important to acknowledge that this depends almost entirely on context and is often highly exaggerated. Like, yeah, this is kind of a weird thing to see in your local supermarket, but it's not that weird, you know? In a major city, you'll see much weirder stuff pretty much daily anyway. It's not like lewd or indecent or anything. And honestly, I just don't get what the big deal is. Like, the majority of people getting mad about this incident were Americans. You know, America, the nation where it's literally 100% legal and socially acceptable to walk into a public place like a supermarket or university campus with a semi-automatic rifle slung over your shoulder, but the same people praising Caitlyn Bennett for doing that shit are the first to condemn people like this being kinky in public. No offense, but if you're okay with this, but uncomfortable with this, then you might have a bit of a warped view of both sex and violence. Pride, however, is different, at least in theory. See, as mentioned a couple of times already, Pride is about members of the LGBTQ+ community standing up and challenging social, sexual, and gender norms, confronting the harmful ideas pushed by cis-het normativity, and, yes, being open and proud of all aspects of our sexuality, including kinks. Why should anyone feel the need to hide themselves or the way they live on the one day where the entire point is to confront sexual norms? Yeah, sorry, but no. Bear in mind, these people aren't actually doing anything super weird. They're not like getting their dick and balls out, helicopter dicking everywhere in front of kids or anything.
Fucking helicopter dicking everywhere. What the fuck? What we doing?
They're just wearing leather dog masks and shit. Sure, it's a little weird looking, but as we mentioned earlier, it's hard to argue that they shouldn't be included in Pride because they make people uncomfortable or look weird without also including drag queens or trans people or even just LGBT people in general, because there's always going to be some people who are made uncomfortable by the existence of these people or the concept of Pride in general. One thing Rose says that's rather perturbing is when she says, "Keep what you do in the bedroom out of Pride," which is rather concerning because it echoes a lot of homophobic sentiments regarding keeping what they do in the privacy of their own homes, suppressing healthy expressions of gender and sexuality, and acting like being gay and proud is in some way degenerate. This is the same kind of prudish, NIMBY bullshit that has kept the community marginalised for decades, and sorry, but I'm not here for it. Nobody is saying that being a leather dog person is equivalent to being gay or trans or whatever, but equally, those people do belong at Pride because not only are they LGBTQ+, and therefore, yes, definitely belong there, but they fulfill the purpose of Pride, which is, and always has been, to challenge the cis-heteronormative status quo and to cause people to question the often harmful norms society insists upon. If it's a choice between excluding those who fall outside outside of what is generally accepted by society, by the social means or by force, and continuing to allow people like this into pride parades, then I know what I would prefer. Rose, on the other hand, would presumably prefer the police forcibly eject anyone who isn't wearing business attire, or who is acting too abnormal or flamboyant, or anyone who's even vaguely likely to make the general public or corporations feel uncomfortable. So actually, why not remove trans and gender non-conforming people too, and the drag queens? And whilst we're at it, why not just replace the bisexuals with more corporate representation? Because they're probably just pretending or doing it for attention, until the whole thing is just attractive cis white gays in matching unthreatening clothing, and multinational corporations pretending to give a fuck about inclusivity and diversity. Because that's what pride's all about, right? Hello! That was the video. I'm sure this comment section will be full of people who have nothing but reasonable arguments to make. But anyway, this is just my feelings on the situation. I guess feel free to post your own. But I do think it's important to remember both the history and the purpose of pride. And frankly, the purpose of pride is not to assimilate and to fit in with cis-het society. Sorry. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you again for the next one. I am actually going to make a proper video for actual pride, but this was annoying me, so I thought I'd just put this one out in the meantime.